Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for this 22nd of July 2017. Joining me as always, Dan Miller.
Hello, hello.
Tom McGill, myself, Dave Scotland. And more recently spending a lot of time perusing some classic sci-fi and fantasy and just movies from a classic bygone age. And tonight we are stepping into the world of Flash Gordon, the classic 80s, what can probably be termed as space opera, would we say? Given that the soundtrack is so pivotal to the identity of the film. So how are we in general, gentlemen, for another week?
Pretty good, pretty good.
We're coming to you during the day, actually. This is our first day show. I don't think we've done a day show before, have we?
Yeah, it's weird turning up to your place in the day.
It's a bit weird.
Hang on.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Which house is it? Hang on, is this his house?
Yes. It'll be weirder when you go home and realise you've got
It's still
all that extra time.
Yeah.
Tom, your impressions of the great Flash Gordon, and I guess we tend to have a before and after type impression. You saw it obviously in its first run.
No. So we're taking it, if we're thinking about people who watched it a lot of times and people who even watched the old 1930s black and white things, and then people who have never watched it at all, then I'm at that latter end.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched it once in the mid-90s or something on German television, and only because it had the soundtrack from Queen, so I felt obliged to watch it. And so, okay, right. It's not there.
Yeah.
Not the soundtrack is not their most famous album, and in fact, it's often quietly not mentioned. It's not a bad soundtrack, but it's not in the vein of all the Queen albums. It's not necessarily part of their oeuvre.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is the first of two films that they made music for.
Yeah.
And Highlander never got that Queen soundtrack to it. It's just there's an album, Kind of Magic, which features a lot of the songs from Highlander, but that album is never sold as the soundtrack to the movie.
Yeah,
whereas this album very much is. And I listened to the album again this morning in the car, and there's just a lot of talking, a lot of scenes from the movie in there. And so I knew the album before I knew the film. So I wanted to see.
So there is a chance that you may have heard more of the music before you even sort of.
That is right. So I wanted to see what all these excerpts are. There's a wedding march in there, and there's people going, "Come, my Hawkman!" And so I thought, Flash Gordon wasn't big. They showed Flash Gordon in German television. Mm-hmm. But it's like Doctor Who. Some things were really big in the English-speaking world, but not so big. Now, Flash Gordon was shown on German television, and I had friends at school in grade 6 that watched it, loved it, but I never watched it. So I think on a previous show I once said that I used to watch Star Trek, the original series, with my dad, and he was a big fan of that, and I watched it with him, and I always only thought it was good when the Klingon battleships showed up, which only happens in like 2 episodes. So the special effects of Flash Gordon were below what I was willing to watch at the time, where you have black and white spaceships with debris falling out the back. So no, I never watched Flash Gordon. I watched the movie. I was glad that I now know what the soundtrack was about. Yeah. And I didn't watch it again until recently.
It did. And do you think it aged? How do you think it aged?
Because it has so many now well-known actors in it, that I was really glad to see the young Timothy Dalton and the young Brian Blessed.
Yep. Yep. And Max von Sydow, who apparently was never young.
No. He's Max von Sydow. Sydow is already old in every. I've not ever seen him young. That's right.
Yep. But
I remember as a teenager that on Nella Muti was a bit of a easy on the eyes.
Oh yes, definitely.
She was quite because Italian and so in Europe she was well known and well seen, well loved.
Yeah, produced by Dino De Laurentiis, so there's a lot of Italian flavour, and
the whole crew that built the sets was Italian.
Yes, and he was trying desperately to get an very famous Italian director.
Sergio Leone.
Leone was his second choice.
Leone was a choice, yeah.
Yeah, the first choice was someone even grander than
Federico Fellini.
Fellini.
That's right.
Because Fellini, in his younger years, when Mussolini was in charge, there was no comics. There was not supposed to be any comic books, and Fellini worked on Flash Gordon comic strips in dark rooms and hidden by the fascist dictatorship.
Yeah, right.
And it got pretty close, but yeah, there's some trivia. There's some goings on around this film. Dan. What was your impression before and after? You would have seen it when you were younger.
Yeah, I saw it when I was younger. I think I've got this vague memory of like seeing it in a school gymnasium or something, or rather on one of those film nights that the school would put on, and everybody'd turn up and there'd be popcorn and stuff
sitting on the floor.
Yeah, sitting on the floor in the cold gymnasium or something or other.
Yeah.
And then I've got other memories of seeing it, on VHS.
Well, that was it for me, because it came out around the time where VHS started to become the norm in people's lounge rooms, where it became affordable in people's lounge rooms. There was that early VHS beta, and then when or video beta. And then when we went VHS, it became more affordable, and then we started. It was around the same time, and that's also when I saw Krull, and it was all in that same sort of period. So I happened to this thing on loop. It just went. It was played for almost every day for six.
Oh, so you watched it a lot, because I only saw it like 2 or 3 times in the past, and it never made a big, gigantic impression on me.
Yeah.
And I think a bit like Tom. I was like, even in like 1980, I was thinking. Special effects, particularly, the Hawkman wings.
And good lord!
What the,
It felt very stagey, didn't it? It felt live. It felt like there was an audience somewhere behind.
You said it was you said it was like an opera. I think it's like a pantomime or a play or something.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like a film.
Yeah,
and maybe that's direction. I don't know what, but even when you look at a lot of the still images, when we go hunting for stills for the show, a lot of them are sort of 45-degree angled people staring off.
I know.
Which you see on stage quite often. There's no camera play. It's all front aligned.
I thought a lot of maybe we should save that discussion for later. But after watching it a number of times for this, and going through it in a bit of detail. The cinematography is pretty good. I'm looking here on IMDb, and it's got 6.5. Right?
Yeah.
And I think, we'll save our sort of final impressions, but I don't know, there are a lot of good things. Maybe we'll do this a little bit more in detail a little bit later on. But like you were saying, a lot of Dutch angle camera stuff, and all of the sets are all vibrantly flashy.
Well, the set design was done by the same guy that did a lot of the early 60s Batman stuff.
Oh, right.
Same stuff. Dutch angle, very very shiny. Shiny
hyper
metallics.
glitter, gold,
really saturated.
Yeah, very saturated.
The cinematographer for this film was Gilbert Taylor, who also did the cinematography for Star Wars.
Oh, right. Yes, I read that. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So he was good at getting the fantasy look.
So anyway, my impressions was that it didn't make much of an impression on me. I knew it was there, and I knew that it was Queen, and that Queen was cool and loved Queen and stuff. But for me, it was just one of those things. Ultimately, video Friday night, you go up and down the racks, and there's like, I haven't seen this one yet. Let's do this one.
Yeah,
and we go and watch that one, and then
you weren't hanging out to see it. I'll throw out a couple of figures. It was a $20 million budget estimated. It made about $27 million US. If I jump over to domestic gross, 27 million. It had. I'm not seeing anything listed on Box Office Mojo for worldwide release, but I would have to say that worldwide release would almost be a similar figure because I think it cross borders really well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it cross borders fairly well. So I would have to say it'd be much more. So it made a profit. It was pretty expensive for a
It certainly
sci-fi
didn't
film.
do as
of the
well as
time.
they had hoped.
That's
it would
correct.
at the
Yeah,
time,
because they had some big players in it,
and they had planned for sequels.
Yeah, that's right.
And De Laurentiis, he doesn't muck around. He's done some big films. He gave us Conan, and if you look at his, sort of list of productions: U571, Hannibal, Army of Darkness, Assassins, King Kong Lives. He did 2 King Kong films. Dune. Conan the Destroyer, Conan the Barbarian, Halloween, Amityville. Like, his name's all over everything. Like, and we should probably do a show dedicated to Dino De Laurentiis because he's done some awesome stuff. We've looked at Corman, we've looked at a couple of other prolific filmmakers. But he had some grand plans for this, and I don't think it quite met. I think he had too much drama. For one, the main actor, that's not his voice in the film.
In a lot of scenes,
He was overdubbed
overdubbed
because
with somebody
he got
else.
cranky with De Laurentiis and didn't come back for the
What
ADR
main
sessions.
actor? Not Flash. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd heard that rumor about that. I'd read that somewhere, but I didn't know it was Flash.
I think if there were intimate scenes, you're probably listening to his voice because it's quieter on set. But whenever there's bigger scenes with a lot more people, you just literally have to ADR that stuff. Like, there's way too much going on.
So he
didn't turn up to the ADR.
He didn't turn up to the ADR. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
There was a
Okay.
falling out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Things like that probably let De Laurentiis down. I think he had a grander vision for what this thing was supposed to be. And the writer famously complained long after the fact that De Laurentiis wanted to turn it into a comedy. And the script wasn't written as a comedy, so he had to retrofit comedy into the script. And he said it was one of his lifetime regrets. The writer, one of his lifetime regrets, is that he actually did it when he should have said no, go to hell. You know, get someone else to do it.
I can't. I mean, having just recently seen the film, I don't see it as a comedy.
It's not shits and giggles,
There's
is
some slapstick in there.
There's some funny little bits that they do, you know, little funny, jokey things that they put in. But I don't think it's more of a. It's a little bit more campy and funny than, say, like Star Wars, right? There's still funny bits in
Well,
Star
they
Wars,
didn't
but
play
they're
it
very
funny.
very
Like,
muted.
even
No,
Flash,
they didn't. They played
Flash
it straight.
didn't play it funny.
They played it
She
straight.
didn't play it funny. The Doctor didn't play it. There's no one.
Well, the
that
Doctor
played
is
it.
so over the top; it's actually funny.
Yeah, was it Tupol?
Topol, yeah.
yeah.
Dr. Zarkov.
Yeah,
Oh, he's over
he's
there.
brilliant. He's
Zarkov.
brilliant at that.
Well, that's
Isn't he?
That if we move into the acting, everybody was acting their pants off.
Yes.
Zarkov, Brian Blessed can't do anything else but act his hello there, people.
Absolutely,
I'm
and even the
Brian
daughter,
Blessed."
Ming's daughter, she was
Timothy Dalton has a knack for that too.
absolutely, yeah.
And of course, Ming himself as being, hyper evilly sedate, but hyper evil and merciless.
Now, stage actors cannot afford to act subtly. They need to be seen from
Yes.
far away.
Yeah.
And people who come from the stage have been trained to overact.
Yeah.
And I wonder if there's a correlation here. If there are people who have.
And perhaps that.
And
Sorry,
there's
go
an-
ahead.
yeah.
No, I just think.
Well, it creates a bit of a contrast because the Flash Gordon actor, what's his name?
Sam Jones.
Sam Jones.
Sam
yeah,
Jones.
yep.
He wasn't an actor, right?
that's
He's
right.
not Brian Blessed.
That's right. Yeah,
You
did
know?
very little leading up and after the fact.
Yeah.
He didn't do much at all.
Yeah. So.
But a lot of the actors in this are English actors, and I think the English pathway to screen is through stage. In America, not so much. That you get plucked out of obscurity in the States, and you can quite literally end up in film without ever doing anything on stage. But the best actors do come through stage. You know, Leonard Nimoy and Shatner and people we call stars of the older period, as opposed to just actors. They tend to have that stage credit, and it's in their voice. They narrate. They end up narrating a bunch of stuff and it's the same with the English actors. Well, this is chock-a-block full of English actors.
It says down here that they were thinking of different actors instead of what's his name?
Oh,
again?
that's right.
Sam Jones.
Well, Sylvester
Schwarzenegger.
Schwarzenegger was in the mix.
Yeah.
Imagine this film with Schwarzenegger as Flash Gordon.
That would have made it would have made a big difference. It would have been awesome.
He would also not have had his final voice in the
that's
film.
right. Yeah. Maybe Sam Jones might have done the ADR for Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, that was the problem, that they didn't like his accent. But where was Schwarzenegger in his acting career at in the 1980s?
He'd already
Can you
done Conan.
Already?
Yeah.
Because he was a bit wooden and a bit. He needed a bit of practice himself until he got into. Yeah, anyway,
you can tell why Schwarzenegger would have been in the mix, because him and De Laurentiis were tight by then.
Yeah.
There was, I think De Laurentiis also had something to do with Red Sonja as well, which was a Schwarzenegger sort of almost cameo role with Bridget Nielsen as the lead.
And didn't they? Kurt Russell also was in the mix of actors being considered for Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon,
and Kurt Russell turned it down.
So let's move into what is essentially the meat and potatoes of the show, where we take a narrative journey through the film. So massive spoiler alert if you haven't seen the film. Where have you been? But we're pretty much going to reveal the film on a scene-by-scene sort of basis. We're going to discuss the plot as we go and the little things we noticed and saw and our own sort of opinions and things like that. And we do it in a narrative. We do it in a linear from start to finish sort of method. And our master of ceremonies for all things narrative is Dan. So if you want to kick us off, Dan, from the opening credits, let's jump into this classic sci-fi piece.
All right. After having done a whole bunch of these, right, where we go through and we sort of discuss the story and discuss the narrative, I'm starting to see a few. I'm starting to do comparisons in my mind.
Yep.
We just did Forbidden Planet. Now, I thought that the Forbidden Planet was very small in its scope of story.
Yes.
They sort of go to the planet, and there's some bit of history and a bit of talking, and the monster turns up, and they fight the monster, and then they kind of leave, and they beat the monster. But then on the other extreme was some other, stuff that we've checked out that had these amazingly complicated.
Yes.
Like,
even Hawk. Hawk was pretty.
Hawk the Slayer.
Eighth Dimension.
Buckaroo Banzai. Just these insanely complicated. It's just like this lolly bag full of ideas.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got this in the back of my mind. If we have a look at this and sort of compare it on that spectrum of complication of whether they're up the simple end or whether they're up the difficult end. All right,
so this has a different heritage. I mean, they could pluck from a strong history of Flash Gordon comic strips, TV shows, to fill this film with all its
and
creatures.
that can be a disadvantage sometimes, where they try to plug in too much.
Exactly, they want to do some fan service perhaps, and we've got to have the Shark Men, we've got to have the Hawk Men, we've got to have the Badger Men, we've got to have everybody in there.
Right.
So it can work both ways. All right, so the story starts off with planet Earth with a target on it.
Yes,
right.
and a conversation happening.
And the conversation is between Ming the Merciless and his offsider.
His number one goon.
Yes.
Clytus.
Which is Clytus.
Who I thought was fantastic in this film.
Clytus is bloody brilliant.
His enunciation and his delivery of lines is brilliant. I had to go and find out who he was and to see. And he's been in other films, and if you close your eyes, you can hear him in those other films.
Peter Wingard is a name.
Yeah.
It was not an unfamiliar name to me. Yeah. But the Earth.
Yeah.
Does it look good? Does it look real? Or does it look like a sprayed on styrofoam ball?
It looks like an old MGM.
This is 1980 that we're talking about. They should have. So did they do that on purpose as an homage to the old Flash Gordon shows?
Maybe.
So rottenly bad.
Even the graphic, even the targeting graphic.
Yeah, even the targeting graphic.
It has to be done on purpose.
With its hyper-saturated red bits and yellow sort of over the top. It's like, come on. Yeah, anyway.
And so essentially Ming is bored.
Ming's bored, yes.
And he wants to know what he can do to get rid of his boredom, and Clytus offers up Earth.
Clytus offers up Earth. And yes, Clytus has this amazing voice. He sounds like Jeremy Irons. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so he's awesome. And so
we don't see Clytus's face.
We don't see Clytus, no. We just see Ming's evil hands with his evil gloves, with
Even throughout the film, we don't get to see who Clytus is under the mask. He's in a gold mask. We see his mouth sort of moving underneath, and his eyes.
He's some sort of gold robot, sort of human cyborg
with humany bits.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, they're going to, I think what does Ming say? He says, he wants to play with Earth before he annihilates it, or something or other. So he's going to, he's going to have a bit of fun.
And we see him pushing a series of Holocaust-esque buttons.
That's right. They've got a volcano button, and also his ring. His ring is a remote control, so he can go wee 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 wee, and it makes the buttons push on the on the thing. So
the last button he hits is fire rain or acid rain. Was it
hot hail?
Hot hail. That's it. That's right.
That's what
and we cut to some remote airstrip somewhere, which to me looks like it's in Scotland somewhere.
Now, as we find out later, this is where Flash Gordon has gone on vacation. And it's like Bonnie Doon from
it does.
Bloody the Castle. It's like going to Bonnie Doon, and it's just like this paddock with
you half expect
a shed.
Mel Gibson to ride past in half his face blue. It's in the middle of nowhere.
So who's he been hanging out with?
The night before, apparently, he bumped into our female or co-star for the film.
Right.
And her name is Dale Arden.
Yes.
Played by Melody Anderson. And he's sitting in the car waiting for the plane to turn up.
That's right.
And she turns up in the shuttle from the hotel the night before, which apparently there were scenes shot that we didn't get to see of this interaction that happened the night before.
That would have been good because
it didn't end well, apparently.
Oh, well, that would have been good.
He cracked onto her and he was too smooth, too cool for school.
That would have been good because when we get to the scene where they're interacting inside the aeroplane, what does Dale say to him? Dale says, talk to me, Flash, I'm really scared. And he says, I've been watching you. Which is what?
Exactly.
Yes, I was watching you when you were alone. I saw you in the hotel, you were alone, and I was watching you. It's like, Dale's like, oh, okay.
Clever in a confined space for 3 hours and I can't go anywhere.
But who's the other person that he's been hanging out with at the airport?
Hagrid.
Been hanging out with Robbie Coltrane.
Robbie Coltrane was loading the bags on the plane. I think his first movie role.
Yes.
Not really a role. He was an extra in the background.
Stand in the doorway and then shut a plane door. And
he stands and watches the plane take off. But yes, the claim to fame for Robbie Coltrane.
All right, so the plane takes off and then they're flying and they talk to the pilots who already know who Flash Gordon is and they want to get him to... Anyway, Dale's a bit afraid of flying and then we see red clouds.
Start to form, that's right.
Start to form. And then there's so when the red clouds form, we also hear Ming the Merciless echoing through the atmosphere somehow.
Yeah.
We also see his face in the cloud.
Get abducted out of the front windows of the plane. We see his face.
That's right. There's also a little cut there where we go and meet two of our other characters.
Yes.
Two of the other important one of the other important characters, and that's Hans Zarkov.
And he's offside Porkins from Star Wars.
Yeah, Han Solo Zarkov or Zark Solo or something or other.
I knew I'd seen him. I knew the other guy, but it wasn't until I was looking for images that I realised that he's Porkins.
Oh, he is actually.
Yeah, he's the guy that
I didn't realise that
in the Y-wing that cops it in the first Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Everything's connected, man.
It's all several connected. Star Wars people in this film.
Yeah.
Who was the other Star Wars person?
The Lobot. He's in there. So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's also got Evil Jawas in there.
Kenny Baker.
Kenny Baker's in there.
He's in here. Lots of dwarves in there.
Yeah.
There's probably only a certain number of dwarves to go around.
Yeah.
So
in the entertainment industry in England, they're all part of the same agency.
So the red clouds are coming down, and then we cut to Hans Zarkov. Now, Hans Zarkov's running around like a madman. There's the hot hail also. So what's the problem that they've got?
The moon has shifted orbit, which
12
is...
degrees, apparently.
Yeah.
12 degrees.
Which was the signal.
Yes.
Because he'd been doing research leading up to this. and he
Got
had
fired for it.
he
Laughed
knew
out
that
of
something
nuts.
was going on.
Yes, that's
he knew
right.
something was happening.
Yes, so he was a NASA scientist, you know, and I don't. How did he know? I don't know.
I got a feeling there was a compression of time when we were seeing Ming with the earthquakes and whatever. It wasn't all happening in 5 minutes. I think it was happening over a series of weeks or days
and
or
he was
whatever.
putting it together.
And he was putting the earthquakes with something and this and that, and then and that's why he was looking to see what the moon was doing.
Well, there has to have been some sort of compression of time because what is Hans planning to do?
Take off in a rocket ship. He had to build the rocket ship
He got
Yes,
fired
that's
from NASA. He took one with him.
Yeah, he somehow took a rocket with him.
in a perfect purpose-built auditorium, sort of a planetarium.
Yeah,
with a perfect silo-shaped thing. Yes, so this is all happening while, this happens. We see this between his assistant and him running around frantically while before the pilots go missing.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So then we cut back to the plane,
Yep.
and then we see Ming's face in the clouds,
Yep.
and then the pilots go missing.
Yeah, and
Somehow.
just so happens, Flash has been recently trained as a pilot.
That's right.
He's been doing lessons.
That's right.
He's never been taught how to land, though.
So so Dale and Flash jump into the plane, and the plane's going to crash.
Yep.
Now, where does it crash? It crashes into Hans Zarkov.
Yes, it takes out Porkins.
It lands
the
on
way in.
Porkins.
Yeah. Now, this is actually a more important piece of the movie than it sounds, because this is good practice that'll come in handy later.
Yeah. Speaking of comedy, that's probably one of the funniest scenes where the fat guy says, "Nah, I'm out. You're a madman. I'm out," and then he pulls the gun out.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
starts-
yeah.
starts
Chasing you
shooting.
around with a
He's running-
gun.
He's running through this what looks like some sort of internal garden, greenhouse type thing, and he runs out the door and then runs back in the
In the
door.
door.
And he's like, "I knew it. You're not a coward." And then
Yeah.
the plane comes crashing through and squashes him.
Yeah. All right. So
That's Flash Gordon's thing. When he flies big things, he always kills
He
somebody.
kills someone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
his-
Yes,
Not very good
this
at
is-
landing.
Yeah, that's it. That's his trick, his shtick. Yeah. All right then. So, what happens next?
Well, they crash land, and then they ask Zarkov, who has concealed the fact he's got a gun behind his back.
Yes.
They ask Zarkov to use his telephone.
Well, Zarkov says that you're going to need a telephone, aren't you?
I've got this
And they
big
say-
ass phone
Yeah.
booth back there.
Yes.
Big cylinder of a phone booth.
Yes, in my rocket phone booth. Because why does Zarkov need to get them into the rocket phone?
Because of the daftest construction of any spaceship.
There's a built-in dead man switch that somebody's got to push the foot on.
Yeah.
And
in
it's
order
so
for it
far
to
away
take
that it's
off.
away from this ignition button, so he can't do it with one person.
So he needs somebody to put their foot on a red pedal on the floor. Now, why he doesn't get a brick? So they're going to put the brick on the
Yeah.
pedal. I don't
Why
know.
does he have a pedal in the first place?
But he decides he's going to kidnap
Yep.
these two people.
So
and,
they go in to make the phone call, and then Zarkov locks the door behind them,
There-
holds
there's
the gun.
There's a good line there where she says, "That's Hans Zarkov. He's a crazy scientist from NASA." And then Hans has got the gun and says, "Get into the spaceship." And then Flash's line is, "Are you crazy?"
Yeah, there's a lot of that with his delivery as well. Like,
Okay, so Zarkov then says, "I only need the light one," so the woman stays. Flash, get out of the spaceship.
Yeah.
And then
he's just about to leave.
right.
Plays the hero card.
Yep.
Tries to take the gun.
Yep.
Fight ensues, and he gets knocked out.
Who gets knocked out?
Flash.
Flash kind of gets knocked out, conked on the head.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
But
in
ignition
this
has already been started.
And exactly how does that happen?
That's what he hits his head on.
No, it's Hans Zarkov. He bangs Zarkov's head into the ignition button for the rocket.
That's right.
All
So
right.
countdown starts, and then Hans says, "Strap yourself in, or you'll be torn to pieces." And push the special dead man
Yeah.
foot pedal.
Yeah. All right. So they blast off into space.
Yep.
And then there's a little sort of a scene. This is a sort of a connection bit of the story where they're adrift in space.
Yep.
And now we know that Flash has already been creeping on Dale Arden.
Mm-hmm.
But in that dreamy state when they're after the rocket, they sort of
because they're all
hands.
unconscious.
They're all unconscious.
but not unconscious enough to not hold each other's hands.
That's right. They
Show a
hold
little
each-
connection moment there.
and they're getting a little bit of a connection
Some
happening.
pretty cool visual effects, all shot with paint in water tanks.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is a mainstay for the whole film. It's the way, I guess, De Laurentiis or the director chose to show space, and it's a very stylistic space
He does
because
similar stuff in Dune.
yeah, it feels like there's a fluid, liquid type atmosphere, very psychedelic colours and things like that.
Ether.
And this is the first time we see it, is when they're approaching and flying through it.
And what do they refer to it as in the movie?
Oh, I can't remember.
It's the Imperial Vortex.
Ah, that's right.
Is that the spirally thing that they fly through?
Yeah,
Yes.
because they're
Yeah.
being trapped.
So I think this is what Ming flies around space in this watery blob of space clouds.
Because the guys doing the tracking, the guys with the things on,
Yeah.
I read somewhere, and I might be wrong, but the guy that gets it ripped off later in the film is the same guy that had the...
The Lobot, yeah.
Yeah, in
Lobo,
Star
yeah,
Wars.
same guy.
Yes, he's the same guy doing the same role. Essentially doing the same role.
Yeah.
They're the human internet.
Yes.
On Ming's internet.
So they crash land.
Yes, they crash land
On Ming's homeworld.
On Ming's homeworld. So, what happens next is they're confronted by a bunch of guards.
Yeah, and Flash wants to make friendly.
Yes, because he's a friendly guy.
Get behind me, leave this to me,
Yep.
and
I'll shake hands?
I'll extend the hand of friendship.
So, what type of guards have they got? Because these turn up again. I classed a couple of them as there's gold samurai robots, right?
There's the red pig face, snouty ones.
Yeah, the Jawas. They're these sort of red
snout Jawas.
Yeah, and whenever you kill them, they have this pathetic squeal
Yeah.
that they go.
And there's always smoke involved. It's like they're burning on the inside.
Yeah. Anyway, and he also has a gun that shoots out a
It
hand.
has a hand. Like it's got the back end of it looks like the gun. The front end is a hand.
Yeah.
And
Shoots
when Flash puts his hand out to shake the hand, this gold hand gets fired at him, and another gold hand,
Does a judo throw with him.
It's
Floating
fired
hand.
Somehow,
and then he's held on the ground by the neck of the handgun.
So they're all captured.
So they're prisoners. Yes.
Yes, they're prisoners. And where do they get taken?
To the reception. There's a imperial
Tribute paying convention.
Yeah,
It's
there
a
just
grand
happens to be-
reception going on.
There just happens to be a big thing going on.
With all of the people from the old classic series. They've managed to get them into one scene.
Yeah,
Right
yeah.
at the very start of the film.
In fact, on those VHS tapes there, one of the episodes is Captured by Sharkmen.
Okay.
So they didn't have the Sharkmen there. And I sort of, was been thinking to myself, imagine that they went with the Sharkmen rather than the Hawkmen. They might have had an easier time on the special effects.
They had to do everything underwater.
Well, maybe that would have been more difficult. But anyway, okay, so it's a tribute ceremony, right?
Yep.
Where all of the people who, all of these different sort of civilizations that live in the Imperial Vortex somehow.
There's Ardentians, there's
The
Phrygians,
the Aborians.
Cytherians, Arborians, there's the Hawkmen, the Sand Moon Girls.
Sad Moon Girls. Where are the
Moon Girls.
Sharkmen?
There's no Sharkmen in IMDb, so they might not have got a jersey for the...
Yeah, maybe he wiped them out,
Yep.
a little while ago.
The guy who falls on his sword. What's his name? His name is
Ooh.
Prince something or other.
Prince Ardentia?
Thun. No, it's Thun. or
No, it's
Thun.
Prince Ardentia,
You sure?
played by George Harris.
Yes.
No, I think it's Prince Thun from Ardentia.
Oh no, yes, it could be Thun. He's George Harris is the Prince of Ardentia, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So what I'm going with that is I think that I read, and I'm not, as I said at the start, I'm not a Flash Gordon Wikipedia kind of person, but I thought that I read that his name is originally the leader of the Sharkmen.
Oh,
And they
right.
didn't use the Sharkmen, but they used that name of that character
To pay
here
homage.
as the
Very
leader
good.
of the Ardentians.
Very good, I approve.
Cool.
So, turns out that Brian Blessed from the Hawkmen is just about to give the ice jewel from Phrygia to Ming
Yes.
as their tribute present for that week or whatever it is that they have to do.
An inburst Baron.
Yes.
From
Baron.
Baron from the moon of
Arborea.
The forest moon of
yeah,
Arborea.
he's like a space elf from
slash Robin Hood.
slash Robin Hood from the forest moon of Arborea.
Who is complaining that you stole it from us and we got it from the moon of Phrygia.
Yeah. So they have a bit of a fight, and then
a standoff,
and then Cletus, the robot, says, "Oi, stop fighting!
If you spill any blood, I'll kill you all. We will all. No one dies in the presence of Ming without specific permission."
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then the big scene where the memorable scene is when they ask Prince Thune or whatever it is, "What have you got?" And what has he got, Tom?
He's got nothing but his loyalty, which Ming prizes above nothing else.
Yes.
And wants him to prove it.
Yeah, as he would.
And so asking him to prove his loyalty by stabbing himself in the stomach.
Fall on his sword.
And
he seizes this opportunity to pull his sword out and try to take out Ming.
Yeah, tries to stab old Ming.
But then he ran into the ring of Ming.
The ring of Ming. Ming's faster on the ring.
Yes. Which froze him solid.
Ming's ring thing.
Yes. And then then what happens after that?
Well, Ming takes the sword, pries his fingers off the sword, takes the sword, stabs him, and reveals that his blood's blue, green?
Some
weird colour. But kills him in front of everyone.
So yes, the rather merciless Ming then just proceeds to stab him in the stomach with a giant sword, which is like, ooh, okay. And all of this then causes Flash Gordon to say to Dale, "This guy's a psycho."
Yeah. Which the robot, floating head robot, repeats.
Overhears, yes.
Repeats through
he
his
dobs
speaker
him
system
in.
and dobs him in, and everyone hears the statements. Who says that? Bring that person forward.
He brings that person forward.
And we see a really bizarre sort of moment where Ming is using the ring to fondle from afar.
Telefondle.
Remote fondling of Dale.
It's his telefiddler ring.
with his ring.
Yeah, so he casts some sort of magic ring ray on Dale, who proceeds to do some sort of happy dance
thing.
Space dance. And but Ming is impressed. He's impressed with her space dance and her reaction to the ring, and asks, I think the line is, "Remove the Earth Woman for our pleasure."
Yes.
Okay.
And Flash has got a problem with that.
Yes, in fact, his line is, and I wrote it here, "Forget it, Ming. Dale's with me."
Like you've got all the bargaining power in the world.
And then what happens?
There is an impromptu game of football.
Yes, with gold robots and
some kind of green
Fabergé
cantaloupe
eggs.
thing. And it's our first Queen rock action rock
with
ballad
music.
thing going on. Because of course Flash is famous on Earth because he's a football player. I think he's a quarterback.
Yeah.
And
The
and
New
so
York Jets.
yeah, with the Jets. And he proceeds to play a game of football with the guards, and much to the delight of many of the onlookers, like the Hawkmen, and everyone was sort of
Gains
getting
everyone's
into it,
respect for the
cheering,
process.
and is on Team Flash almost immediately, and it's mainly because we're anti-Ming, so we like Team Flash.
I think even Ming says to Cletus the robot, he says, like, "Are our guards on the right pills?"
And then there's strategy going on between Ming, and all of a sudden Ming becomes a football manager.
Yeah. And he says, wait.
Tell your guards on the right-hand side to get the flanks.
Anyway, then they're dancing around and everything's going crazy.
Yeah.
And it all comes to a conclusion when Zarkov decides, hey,
Yes.
I'm going to get a piece of this.
Yeah, and Flash is throwing it off to the side and then throws it back. He throws it and pegs it at somebody's head and knocks one out, blah, blah, blah. And Zarkov pegs it back and knocks Flash out.
Yes.
And he gets taken away.
Yes, Zarkov takes Flash out.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the end result? So Ming's had enough. He says, all right, fuck,
Yep.
Fuck, party's over.
Yep.
Right, we're going to wrap this up. And he has...
Take the professor for reprogramming.
Yep.
Take the girl to be prepared for our pleasures and execute Flash.
Yes. Sorted. All right, so that's where we are after that. The next little story beat I've got is Dungeons and Dales and Death.
And the spiky square helmet of doom.
So he's in a dungeon.
Yep.
And he's got his shirt off. And he's got his hot pants on. And he's got a spiky helmet on for some reason.
And the director of the film got together with Ming and decided we need more exposition. So they allowed Dale to go to the dungeon.
That's right. In fact,
talk to Flash.
In fact, you know, I think the line is that Gordon says, Cletus, because Cletus, the robot's there, and he says, Cletus, I want to see Dale. And he says, you know, then Cletus says, well, I kind of thought you'd want to do that, so I just happened to bring her with me. Bring in the girl!
Once again, you got no bargaining power, but you're getting exactly what you want.
And then his next line is, because he's got this big fat helmet on with his spikes all over it, he's like, I wanted to see Dale. And then he's like, wee, 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 wee. And that disappears.
And they have, but they only have enough time to talk to one another as the sands of the hourglass, which happens to go up instead of down.
Yes, because space.
Because space.
Yes. And what do they talk about?
Not a lot.
No, they say, oh, it's such a bad dream. It's like a bad dream. He says, if it was a dream, we might wake up and sleep.
They could have planned something. They could have got together on something and maybe made some kind of plan to escape, but they didn't.
They didn't. So, next scene is the execution.
Yes.
Now, Ming the Merciless, who has just stabbed somebody in the stomach in front of everybody, plans on executing Flash using
painless
gas.
Painless gas.
Wouldn't he be like, you know...
Well, the real punishment is he has to die in his undies. In front of everyone.
In silver undies. Yeah.
Yes, the ultimate humiliation.
Glass gas dome that only works when you're in your undies.
Yeah. Well, anyway, for some reason he decides this humane death is the thing to do. So they take Dale in his undies. No, they take Flash in his undies. Meanwhile, Dale's all dressed up as getting into a princess
concubine.
Kit. Yeah, concubine, getting ready to be conked. And sitting down in the execution chair. And then mysteriously, a person with a big injection gun goes up and injects stuff into Flash, which apparently is what you do before you... I don't know quite why.
Makes it even less painless?
It wasn't...
Make it even less painless.
It
doesn't
didn't rouse
seem like
suspicion.
Ming the Merciless anymore. He's just like Ming the Painless.
Yeah.
Ming the...
In
'Cause it
the
didn't
original
rouse suspicion.
script, he wasn't Ming the Merciless until he executed Flash. And Dale says, oh, you're merciless.
I like
And he goes,
that.
oh, yeah, it's got a ring to it.
Here I was, Ming the euthanasist. I was like, no, fuck that. We can change it.
Let's go with the merciless thing.
Yeah. So anyway, injects him with some stuff,
which doesn't rouse suspicion. So it must have been part of the... Because they're in a glass chamber and everyone's looking.
Yes. And so, I don't know, this is part of the normal operating procedure, I
So
suppose.
then the gas starts to fill the chamber.
Mm-hmm.
We very passive, not a lot of fighting or whatever. And then the doctor goes in and declares him dead.
Right. And our next scene is in the... what I imagine is the mortuary, the space mortuary, with gold paneling on the walls and
they
sparkles
spared no
everywhere.
expense.
Yeah.
On his coffin and
Yes, he has a
and the plaque.
Yes, he has a
which
marble
absolutely perfectly matches the T-shirt and the and the memorabilia you can get for the film.
Yes. What's this guy's name anyway? Well, we've got all his clothes that we've taken off. We'll just write whatever we find on his clothes on his thing here.
Yes.
All right, so we now have the reverse Prince Charming deal, because Prince Charming is in the coffin, and it's the princess.
Yes.
Who's going to give him the kiss of life?
Bring him back to life. Yes.
So Mr. Drug Man with the injector comes and injects him again.
Yep.
And this is where we meet Princess
Ming's daughter.
Ming's daughter.
We've seen her glancing views of her in the opening reception where she is undressing Flash with her eyes
Oh, yes.
as she walks around with her pet little person,
Yes.
who is actually called Fellini, to pay homage to the director they didn't get.
That's a fairly famous actor too, Deep Roy, who is in a lot of films. Most famously in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as every single Lumpa that runs around in there. Yeah.
Yep. And in, I think he was one of the hobbits in Lord of the Rings.
I wouldn't. He's another one of those people that
Not one of the
pops up every now and
proper
then.
hobbits, but when they do small hobbits
One of
next
the
to
back-
big people,
Mhm.
he was
Oh,
one
right,
of the
right.
one of the stand-in sort of size difference shots.
Special
stuff.
effect Hobbit.
Yep.
All right, so
We talked about him in Into Darkness as well. Star Trek Beyond. He's Scotty's little acid spitting
I didn't even know that.
minion.
I didn't even know that.
Scotty's alien friend.
There's a weird shot in one of the Transformers movies, the one with the pyramids, and they're driving through the desert in their Camaros and stuff like that, and they get to some outpost with a gate across the road, even though there's no fence, nothing. And the guards all pull out their weapons, they're all pointing them at the thing, and he sticks his head out of the thing, and I think he makes some reference to America, yeah, go! And opens the thing and it drives through. But yeah, he pops up in film all over the place. So yes, she, Ming's daughter is
Princess Aura.
Yes, she's trying to save Flash, or
She just likes him. She
Yeah.
just reckons she's
He's got
to have her way.
yes. She's just turned on. So she brings him out of the coffin and proceeds to not watch him while he changes his clothes. Then we bust out of there, and she's got a new uniform for him, and he's all dressed up in some different clobber. And then they go past, as they're trying to escape, they go past a window, and they see in the window and Zarkov, who's been strapped to a bench
Yes.
with the biggest laser,
Pointing at his brain, being
sorry,
interrogated by
pointing at his
by
brain.
Ming himself.
Yes.
Yep.
And actually, this is really important because what does Ming say? It's a Ming confession, in fact. A little bit of exposition. And Ming comes in and says, "Oh, while I'm here, I'll just
right.
tell you all my plans."
How he destroys worlds and how he tests them.
That's right.
Whether they see the hand of Ming in all their bad weather.
That's right. So he says that every 1,000 years, he likes to test a planet, and he sends volcanoes and hot hail and all sorts of different things. And if these people recognize that it's Ming the Merciless who is doing it, he kills them.
Okay.
If they don't recognize, it doesn't matter.
Yep. Now they did recognise because we saw Ming in the clouds. Is that what we're talking about here? Because
Well, we did, yeah.
because otherwise Zarkov wouldn't have a countdown clock.
Yeah, Zarkov recognized that there's some alien
Yep.
force. It's not just natural disaster, and
Yep.
Zarkov launched his rocket ship, and that
Yep. So
was the
I guess
death
it's his
sentence
way.
for the Earth.
It's Ming's way of saying, if they're technologically advanced enough to recognise my hand in what's going on, then
They might be a
They're a
threat.
threat.
Yes, so he kills them. All right, but he was also trying to rub it in a bit. So, Zarkov says, "So it's me that caused, the Earth to be destroyed." And Ming's like, "Ha, ha, ha. You got it, buddy. Sucker."
Psych.
All right, so...
Like a good villain too, leaves the room and lets somebody else do the deed.
yes.
Once
So,
he's dropped the plot.
so what are they going to do with him? They got the big
They're
laser.
going to reprogram him. They want to use his brain and
They're going to empty his mind.
and build him back up as a secret agent.
And I like the line where he says, "They're going to empty your mind." And he says, Don't do that. I've spent 50 years trying to fill it up." Anyway, they're going to reprogram him to level 3.
But only level 3.
Yes, and then General Carlo immediately says, "Put the laser beam on level 6.
But Cletus said, "I don't care."
Dude, yes.
So we see the laser beam hit him in the head and then end scene. And we cut to Flash.
No, wait, but before that, we have this kind of reverse montage as all of his brain starts to get
That's
emptied.
right. Yeah, up on the screen.
And some of the things that I like, I mean, again, it's like you see him, Karkov chasing this guy, the what's his name?
Yeah,
Porkins around the
gun.
thing with the gun.
And
then
Dale and what's her name getting in the thing, and there's all these isolated, small time frame stuff, and then in amongst it is the Beatles and New York.
Yeah. And he's chasing his wife around, and his wife dies in a pool or something or other.
Right.
And then there's like Second World War, and then you see, Gestapo, Hitler, people marching around, and you see Clytus say, "Ooh, that guy's got promise."
Yeah.
I like the cut of his jib.
Yeah.
And anyway, okay, so then his brain gets emptied. All right. So the next story beat that I've got is this kind of mid part of the movie where I called it Sex and Drugs and Setups.
Uh-huh.
So we've got, first of all, we've got Flash inside a aeroplane, inside a spaceship, with Princess Aura.
Yep. She's absconding with Flash and
Yes, so
pleasure moon.
unbeknownst to
that's right. They're going off to their pleasure moon or whatever it is.
all secret, sneaky stuff.
Yes, and she's got her hands all over him, and she's like, what are some of the double entendre things from the other movies? I'm trying to think. I can't think.
Meanwhile, in that scene, she's also teaching him how to fly a shuttle.
Yes.
And how to remote telepath
That's right.
as well.
That's right.
And
The
tap into other people's brains.
Telepathophone.
Yeah. Which he does, and he talks to Dale.
He gives Dale a call because Dale thinks that he's dead, right? Now, just before that happens, Dale's in the harem full of all of the other princesses, and they bring her, for some reason,
Special potion.
They bring her special potion,
They
which
take pity
is
on her.
they
They take pity on her
take
and say,
pity.
"Drink this; it'll make you feel less
Violated.
less capable."
That's right. Less capable and less. Anyway, it's essentially some drugs that they've got for her, and I noted down here that the drugs they came from the Pleasure Galaxy. Yeah, Pleasure Galaxy.
Ah.
I didn't know they had one of those. Yeah.
It's an infinite universe. They gotta have a pleasure galaxy.
Somewhere there's got to be one. So I'd like to kind of go to the Pleasure Galaxy. I mean,
See what they got going on there.
see what they got going on there.
Spend a
Probably
week
roller
with
coasters,
drugs.
maybe. I don't know.
It's probably all very grotty and shifty characters and sticky floors.
Yeah. It's
Just
like
been misnamed.
You're not gonna like
it's like
it.
this rundown Disney World. It's like people in suits that don't really care anymore. Happy, it's the Pleasure Galaxy.
Kill us.
Yeah. Yeah, they're all on drugs as well. All right, so they get on the telepathophone and they send a message to Dale, and then more drugs come in for Dale, and this is an important plot point.
That's right.
She does the switcheroo. So she gives the drugs to the servant, Princess Harem chick, who immediately, takes them and conks out.
Yep.
And this means that when Ming arrives, we see Princess Legs on the bed, and Ming's feeling a bit rapey.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so he comes in and gets a bit handy, but shit, it's not the right princess.
Yep.
All right, and it turns out that Dale has escaped.
Yes.
And she has a laser gun.
Yep.
Because she
And cartwheels.
and cartwheels.
She's got cartwheels and laser gun.
She
That was fun.
kicks ass, yeah.
Yes, I thought it was fucking
Yeah.
fantastic.
So she's got a laser gun with high heel shoes dangling. In case she
Yeah,
wants
that's
to
right.
slip those back on later.
Yeah, you might need those later.
I think at one point she puts the high heel shoes down, does a cartwheel with the laser gun, lands it, perfect 10 landing, and then shoots the
the squealer bot in the face.
the
He's
squealer
like,
bot.
"Oh, God, that hurt," and dies.
Yep.
All right.
So she's not exactly a damsel.
Yeah, she's a
Kicks a bit of butt.
She can kick butt when she needs to.
She's a New York City girl.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that's right.
New York City girl. She knows how to cartwheel and shoot laser beams. All right. So, but they've got her on the radar scopes, and they're going to send Agent Zarkov
That's
to
right.
go and capture her.
That's right. They activate
Agent Zarkov, right? Who's now looking very wooden.
Yep.
and is spouting all of the right propaganda. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on right at the moment.
It's concurrent sort of
There's
storylines.
like a bunch of storylines. So,
Well, Flash gets taken to the princess
Arborea?
Arborea.
to Arborea by the princess because the boyfriend, the princess's boyfriend, is the prince of Arborea.
that's right.
Timothy Dalton.
Played by Timothy Dalton, and her plan is to have Flash hide out there
Yeah.
with the boyfriend.
Yes.
It's a ridiculous plan. She didn't think it through at all. Like,
She's spoiled. She gets her will. She has no problem with
I
that.
thought they were going to the pleasure moon, but anyway, she decides, she's gonna.
yeah, as if Dalton's not going to see through exactly what's going on.
Yes. So, all right. So, so they land on which is essentially Dagobah, planet Arborea / Dagobah,
And from a wide shot, it's really quite a small
it's
asteroid.
half a moon actually.
It's a little tiny thing with some trees on the top.
well, they're
bowl.
all every world is a floating city.
Is it?
Yeah,
They're all like shattered.
they're all
parts
shattered parts of other planets
yeah,
and floating
yeah.
through in this imperial vortex thing. Yeah.
And it's they walk in on, or at least stand off to the side while some kind of ceremony is taking place with the
the coming of age.
But also
coming
just-
of age
just-
ceremony,
just
which we need to see because we need to see the threat to
Yes,
Flash's life
so
later
you
on.
know the guy's gonna die.
Yeah,
I was watching it with my 12-year-old.
Yeah.
I said, "This guy. How do you know that this guy's gonna die? You know, it's so obvious right from the start. It has to be. It's scripted."
Absolutely.
All right. So explain that to us. So they.
Well, it's a big stump. It's a hollowed out stump with some kind of scorpion type death creature inside the stump.
Yep.
And on the outside is a whole bunch of holes that you can put your hand into. And the idea being that you never know where that creature is hiding in the stump. And it's for courage. It's to show you courage. And you put your hand in there, and if you
Yes.
survive, then you have passed the.
It's a
but if-
passage of manhood.
but if you get hit, it's certain death, and you need to be put out of your misery put to the sword by the prince.
Yeah. So what actually happens is our young dude who's going to try and do this sticks his hand in the wrong hole.
Yep.
And he gets bit by the scorpion tree monster.
Yep.
And apparently he's going to go crazy in a few months, but decides he'd better.
Much better that Baron just kill me now.
Much better that Baron stab me in the face with a sword right now.
Yeah.
Which Baron proceeds to do.
Yep. And Flash sees all this
Yes.
off to the side, waiting. And Baron is not aware that they're there yet.
All right. So the next story beat is Aura wants Baron to harbour Gordon in Arborea.
Yeah.
Okay. So they're going to put Flash... but Baron doesn't want to do that. He doesn't really like that idea, right? And he's going to put him in a cage in the swamp.
Yeah.
And Flash asks him, let's team up. Let's be a team. Let's fight together. And Baron's not having any of it.
Because of petty jealousy, essentially.
Yeah, because he already saw Flash
Yeah.
fight. He should know that he should team up with him.
Yeah. But he doesn't
But he
because
doesn't.
it's jealousy.
Yes.
You reckon it's jealousy?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
All right.
He's been made to look a fool by his girlfriend.
Yeah. And he's got a little right-hand man who you recognize by his voice immediately, and that's
Yes.
Richard O'Brien.
Yes, Richard O'Brien.
Yep.
I was very delighted to see, even though he had only a very short part in this film.
And he's from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
He
He
wrote.
comes up with a plan.
Wrote.
He wrote the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Yeah.
Oh, really? I didn't.
He's
I didn't
Riff
know.
Raff. He plays.
Riff Raff.
Riff Raff,
Yeah.
but he's the composer.
He comes up with a plan.
Yes, and I never quite understood what this plan was
Well,
exactly.
they had to. We couldn't be caught killing. It would end badly if we kill Flash.
Right.
But if something was to happen to Flash while he was out in the forest somewhere,
Yeah. Who could know? Yeah, what's going to happen? All right. Yes, that's right. So, but there's another bit that we've got to attend to before that happens, and that is that Zarkov is escaping on a jet bike.
yes, with Dale Arden in tow.
That's right. And it turns out that the gigantic mega laser ray, even set to 6, had no effect
And
whatsoever.
one has to wonder, it was because it was set to 6 it didn't work. If she had done what she was told,
Yes.
put it on a low,
Set it to human 3, not to ineffectual 6.
she bruised the eggs and they needed to be lightly mixed.
Yes, that's right. She went too hard. Anyway, so yes, he was.
And he did it. His theory was he did it. He blocked them out by thinking random thoughts.
Thinking things.
The
that-
Beatles and
Einstein and
Yes.
mathematical formulae.
Shakespeare.
they couldn't break me.
Yes.
And some of the acting in those moments is just fantastic. Second to none.
Okay, so what happens to them? They're flying away from the castle.
And then they get picked up.
They get picked up by the Hawkmen.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then they get taken back to the Hawkman City,
Yep.
which is a flying Disney
Floating
castle.
palace, yes.
Yes. What is it called? Is
Hawk
it?
City? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Does it have a name?
I don't know.
Oh,
if it has-
probably, yeah, of course.
Probably has a name. Is it Phrygia or something? Or
No,
other? I don't
Phrygia
know.
is elsewhere.
Floating.
So they get taken back to his city.
Bespin.
Yeah.
Bespin. Yes,
Yeah.
it's Bespin.
It is Bespin.
Everything's Star Wars, man, I tell you. All right, yes, it's floating city in a fucking big cloud. Of course
Cloud City. No.
Yeah. It's a cloud city. All right, so they want Brian Blessed and the Hawkmen to betray Ming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because, the Hawkmen don't like Ming, right? Because they're under his merciless rule. Do you know what is Brian Blessed's response to that?
He needs more time.
He needs more time, that's right. They don't have enough weapons.
Yeah.
And instead, he's going to turn Zarkov and Dale Arden back to Ming.
To stay in his good graces, to
Yes.
not be suspicious.
So they can get closer and stab him in the
Yeah.
back later.
Yeah.
All right, so that's their plan. Meanwhile, they then get a message from Arborea that Gordon's alive.
Gordon's alive.
Which is one of the best lines. So anyway, so then we have Tree Trunk Part 2. So this is their cunning plan. Back on Arborea, Prince Baron sort of lets Gordon escape from the cage
in the swamp.
and then if he happens to walk past the ceremonial place, then he'll get in trouble and then he can legally
tradition.
make him do something that'll result in him dying.
Absolutely.
So that's the plan.
Yep. So he gets led there by Riff Raff.
Led there by Riff Raff. All right. So then when they what happens next? They have this kind of a showdown between Baron and Flash.
Yeah, they sort of strut around the tree
Yeah,
and take turns with a
tougher
Russian
than
roulette.
you. Okay, so then they have to do the Russian roulette.
Yep.
And
It's called Sky City.
it's called
So there you go. The Cloud City. So when George Lucas did his second film, he thought, Sky City's taken. What can I do next? What's next in line?
I've got a genius idea.
Yep.
We'll call it Cloud City. All right. So, what happens in the trunk hand putting in Scorpion danger ceremony is
Well,
that.
two things happen. First of all, the Baron cheats.
Oh, no.
Place
Before we
dirty.
even get there,
Yeah.
the Baron says, "I'm brave." I think this is what he says. "I'm brave, and you're a wuss,
Yeah.
Flash." And
Yeah.
Flash says, "I'm no wuss."
Yeah.
And then Baron says, "I'll show you how stupidly brave I am. I'm going to do something ridiculously dangerous and put my hand in this trunk where I might die." So he puts his hand in the trunk, and he doesn't die.
The Flash goes first.
No, it's not Flash.
No,
it's
no,
Baron.
no.
It's
It's Baron
Baron
goes
goes
Baron goes
first.
first.
All right.
Flash goes second.
Wait.
Baron goes third. Flash goes fourth. And then Baron says, go again.
That's right. However, if you were Flash Gordon and Baron put his hand in the trunk and came out and says, "Ha ha, I live, your turn," what would be the next best move?
Put your hand in the same hole.
Yes, put your hand in exactly the same hole and go, "Ha ha!" And then Baron
Yeah.
would have to go and put his hand in another
In a
hole.
new hole.
And
Yeah.
then you would put your hand in the same hole.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because no one spelt the rules out at the start either.
So anyway, people are putting their hands in all types of holes.
Yep.
And but fortunately, Flash has a not as elegant as my plan, but he has another plan.
Yep.
And that is that he basically pretends
He's going to fake it.
He's going to fake it. And say,
Yep.
oh, I've been stabbed by the monster.
Yep.
And
An intense acting moment.
yes, and then end it.
Yes,
end it now.
Kill me now.
And then Baron draws out his sword and
Hang
somehow
on. No, you got to pay homage to how he de-swords the Baron.
Okay.
Because in mid-move,
okay.
he says, "Fooled you, Baron." During the actual move, he says, "Fooled you," and takes the sword off him. Then throws the sword
Yes.
over the edge of the platform that they're on and swings off on a vine.
Yeah, jumps off.
Take the sword. How do you know you're not going to need that sword, you idiot? So now he's
Swordless.
walking aimlessly through the forest of Arborea, which is a dangerous place.
That's right. So he falls instantly into a quicksand swamp.
Yeah, well, it's a swamp monster, crabby thing.
And a swamp. No, he falls into
he's
quicksand
first.
Gets
and
out of the
Gets out of it.
Gets
Crawls
out of
out.
the frying pan into another swamp monster that's trying to eat him
That's right. And is saved
by Baron.
at the last moment by the Hawkman.
No, he's saved by Baron.
No.
No, he's saved
Baron
by Baron.
has a little
Laser
arrow
beam.
shooting thing, laser beam, and goes
Yes, that's right.
deflates the monster.
He actually has a crossbow that shoots laser
Yeah.
beams.
That's right.
Have I ever seen that anywhere in another movie?
Chewy. And then Baron's crossbow laser beam gun gets shot out of his hand by the
Hawkman. Right. So
He just so happened to be there.
yes, but remember that they'd been in contact before,
Yeah.
right, with Zarkov,
Yeah.
and they came and collected him. All right, so they all get.
Why?
I don't know why.
They wanted to put Sarkov and Dale back to Ming.
That's
what
right.
convinced them to do otherwise?
To go and collect Flash.
Because then they have the fight on the spinny carousel.
Yeah.
So what's the plan that the Hawkmen follow at the moment?
I don't know
I can only-
what's their motivation.
I think it was to get into the good graces with Ming. I think it's to get closer to
So we
Ming.
got these two guys.
They want to hand over
And we'll go over to... They don't know Flashes with Baron.
unless Dale told them.
Yeah, maybe.
Dale might have told them. And it's the Baron. So now we've got the Hawkmen have taken Flash and Baron back to Sky City.
yes.
At which point, Baron invokes a law of combat, a right of combat.
Right, so he's still pissed at Flash.
Any prince of Ming
Yes.
can
Fight
the fate
to
to
the
be
death.
decided in combat.
Something like
To
that.
the death.
Yes. So
So it just so happens that we've got a platform exactly made for that
yes.
with full remote control.
Yes. Just before we get to that, though, remember Dale and Zarkov are on the Flying Cloud City Disney rocket ship because there's an important thing that happens before. Because as soon as Dale and Flash see each other, they hug each other, and then what happens then? They say, they say, Dale says, "Oh, I've haven't seen you in ages," and then Flash says something like, "Yes, and I hope our children will see us as well."
Ah, that's right.
And
It was a
then-
wedding
Yes,
proposal.
Oh,
and they
the
get
engagement.
married. Instantly, they get married.
Yes, he says yes. Well, our children, blah blah blah, and she says yes.
Yes, we will
I
have
accept.
children. Yes, we will.
Now fight to the death.
Yes, now we'll fight to the death. All right, so then there's going to be a fight to the death. Now, fight to the death is going to happen on a disc-shaped object.
Which
Tilts.
and it's got spikes that come up out of it.
So it's basically Tron with spikes. It's really
and whips.
and whips. That's right. They're going to whip each other to death.
Whips. The only weapons they have to use is whips.
Yes.
And the platform itself is probably the most deadly thing that they're.
Yes, and King of the Hawkmen, Vulcan or
Has
whatever his
the
name
remote
is,
control for
Voltron or whatever,
Yeah.
has the remote control for
Yeah.
the spikes.
And has great joy in using it.
Yes.
King Voltan.
Well done, yes.
Now, there's another great line is whilst they're whipping each other to death, Dale yells out in the middle of the fight, "Flash, I love you!" That's right. But we only have 14 hours to save the Earth. And like,
Which I think is in a Queen song from the
Yes,
from
it
the
is.
album.
Yeah.
it's one of the best lines. But I mean, if I would be Flash, I'd just like turn to her and I'm like, "Fuck, I'm busy.
Busy. I'm busy here. Yep.
Stop horsing around, save the planet.
So during the fight, the Baron slips off the edge of the platform,
Almost off the edge, and he's
and
holding on by the skin of his teeth.
and Flash saves him
And Flash saves
instead
him.
of kicking him down, kicking him
Yes.
off, which would have had him sort of fall to his death. I think there's a line from Zarkov for saying, "Oh no, it's when Ming turns up and they let's make parachutes out of this. Oh, the terminal velocity is no, we'll be dead before before we hit the planet. We'll be dead."
There's another thing is that they have no concept of teamwork on the planet in Ming's Imperial Vortex.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, let's join together and teamwork. What's this Earth teamwork you talk of?
That's right.
Well, it's where we all work together. And it's like, whoa, this is a strange concept I've never heard of before. So anyway, they shake hands and they become
Besties.
BFFs,
Yeah.
and they're now best friends.
So Baron's on board now. He's on Team Flash.
He is on Team Flash, but they've been followed. All right, they've been followed by
Glidus.
Cletus, the robot.
Yeah.
And Cletus sends down one of his like shuttles with
Yep.
Cletus on it, and
Yep.
Cletus jumps off.
Yep.
And then what happens?
Well, he gives a great speech first. He meets his demise, obviously, which will
Fairly quickly too.
yeah. But he gives a great little speech where he's
All of
dishing
his
out
speeches.
punishment to
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
You'll be reprogrammed. And,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
just every phrase of every line he delivers is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then the Baron punches him in the gut,
Yes.
pushes him at flat, calls out Flash, turns him around. Flash crash tackles him out onto the spiky platform.
Yep.
And at which point he falls onto spikes.
Mm-hmm.
We see a really gory scene of eyeballs and tongues coming out of his, his
Metal mask.
metal mask, and then he melts.
He melts.
Yes.
As you do.
Which I think that's all the bad guys seem to melt in the film.
Yes.
They're only held together by evil.
Yes, pure
That's right.
evil.
Oozing out then.
Ming's evils holding
Yes,
them
and when
together.
you pop them, it all leaks out. into the
So
universe.
then the shit hits the fan because.
But my question is, why
Voltan-
does Cletus turn up on that thing with no army?
no backup? Cocky. It's
He's complacent.
Yeah,
he's complacent.
Yeah.
He's just like,
because they're not used to working together. Like they're not. Used
oh, that's
to,
right. Nobody understands teamwork.
They're all
It's like,
pledge allegiance to me.
Yes. They've had teamwork sucked out of their brains by that
There's no
laser,
uprising.
probably.
Yeah.
All right. So then, what happens next?
Well, Voltan's pissed because you brought war
That's right.
and
That's
destruction
right.
to my world, to my palace.
And he still hasn't got the teamwork.
not on board yet.
No, he hasn't got the teamwork. The
Yeah.
Earth teamwork.
And so the Doctor and oh no, Ming turns up.
That's right. Ming turns up.
The Doctor, Dale, and Flash are left on the planet on the thing, and
Oh,
Ba-
yeah,
and Baron.
Wait.
Only-
The Hawkmen fly off, and they're going back to planet Arborea, back
Well,
to the Elf
Ming's got to
Kingdom.
turn up. Ming turns up in his shuttle. Right?
Yes.
The Doctor waves
That's where
down
they're
Ming,
trying to do.
right?
That's where they're trying to. Yes, they're trying to do the parachute. They think they can parachute off the island.
Yeah,
off
yeah.
The space.
And Ming turns up, right?
That's right.
And Ming comes down on the shuttle, but while he's coming down on the shuttle, he's already given orders to say, take the girl, take the Doctor and the Baron
Yes.
into custody,
Yep.
and I'll go down on my launch and I'll talk to Flash.
Talk to Flash now.
And he tries to win him over. Tries to sell Flash on Team Ming.
This is a pretty important part of the story, and I really like that they put that in here in the story, because this is the seduction, right?
Yeah.
You know, on the journey of the hero, this is where the bad guys have stopped trying to kill the good guy. They're just going to pay him off now.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's handled perfectly, but you know, I would have liked to have seen Flash already get some of those goodies and have all these princesses and grapes and all sorts of different things, and then change his mind.
Yep.
But Ming says, you know, you try to resist me. I like your style.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
Yes.
I can give you a world.
Yes.
You can rule an entire world. And I think he's talking about Earth, isn't he? At the time, he's.
Oh, he
Yeah,
might be.
yeah,
Yeah,
is.
that's right. Yeah.
You can save your people.
Yes.
At which point he says, no, the one. I'm just care about her, right? I don't care about the 4 billion people on Earth that I could have saved.
Well, I like to think of in the song, he's going to save every one of us.
Yeah.
So he says no.
Yep.
All right. So that means he's going to get left on Cloud City, and they're going to laser beam it to death, and he'll be dead as a can of spam.
Which they proceed to do. They start launching a big sortie into the city.
Yep.
And Flash happens to fall off the edge of a little platform.
Falls through the floor onto a rocket bike.
Swings into a hole in the side of a wall onto a rocket bike.
Which must be the only, because Hawkmen don't need those. Exactly. So there must be that one rocket bike that I have for special visitors.
Yeah. This is the big thing on the internet is why do the Hawkmen have rocket bikes? Why?
Absolutely. Well, they did have, if you noticed early on, they had a lot of slaves.
Yeah.
And so maybe the slaves needed the rocket bikes to go and get the milk.
And a platform fighting area where the death is by falling off the edge is not really deadly for Hawkmen. So this must be an Accusation thing they have specifically for those landlubbers.
Yep.
And so anyone who sort of fell off that thing and died must have come to Cloud City somehow. Probably the car of some guy who never made it off the city.
Flash found the rocket bike, worked out how to fly it in record time, and escaped, unbeknownst to the Doctor and Dale, who saw the city explode.
Yep.
From Ming's ship.
So Ming's taken them back, and Ming's going to marry Dale.
He's decided to marry Dale,
because everybody loves marriages for some reason. And whilst he's Ming the Merciless, he's not Ming the Adulterer. I mean, come on. Let's just keep it real.
Yep.
So he's going to marry her, and they're going to execute the other guys.
Yep.
Zarkov and Baron.
Yep.
And meanwhile, what happens to Flash?
He's
flying around in the clouds.
The Hawkmen are moping down on Arborea.
That's right. Dejected.
Yep. And Voltan is pretty at a low point because he's let Flash.
He doesn't like the decisions. He's made decisions in his life. And he's not too happy with them.
Yep. And then we have a communication come across the wrist communicator that
everybody
somehow
has.
So Flash has worked out how to fly the cycle and work the radio really quickly.
Yep.
And sends out a message to Voltan.
Yes, and reminder of this Earth teamwork thing that they have. And what's Brian Blessed's line? Thank you for giving an old bird a second chance.
So he's on board Team Flash.
So he's now on board Team Flash. And they all fly up into the sky and they hide in the cloud.
Yeah. Without a real plan. Oh, no, they did have a plan. They were going to send Flash in his sky bike and draw the attention.
That's right.
Draw out the ship, the
enemy cruiser.
Was it?
That's it on the screen there.
Warship Ajax.
No, that's not. Well, it might be Warship Ajax. I don't know.
It's another famous line from a Queen song. Send
Rocket Ajax. Bring back his body.
That's coming up actually.
That's it. So that's Space Rocket Ajax there.
Yep.
And so we've got this standoff where the cloud in between Rocket Ajax and the Hawkmen.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing they do, because that's where Flash went in through the cloud, so they energize the cloud.
I like that.
Shoot electricity.
That was a good plan. It shows that they aren't stupid.
And they had some sort of net ready to catch him.
That's right. They actually
dispatch the net.
Yeah. The laser net.
And he doesn't fall out, so they have to go in.
Yeah, that's right. And there's 1,000 Hawkmen inside.
That's right. Okay. That's the Custer decision right there, is we're going in, not knowing that you got a whole lot of Hawks on the other side.
And that's why I liked at least they tried to zap the cloud with electricity before they went in. So I was thinking, all right, they're at least thinking.
Yep.
Right? So what happens? There's going to be a big
battle.
A big battle.
Yep. And this is where we split off again. We have two concurrent stories going on because we've got Dale three. Dale getting married, so she's the ceremony is starting.
Yep.
You've got Baron and the Doctor being rescued by the princess, Ming's daughter.
That's right. They're in the dungeon, and the line is Baron says, "What's his line?" that we come in mid-communication, mid-sentence between Baron and Zarkov, and they've obviously been talking, and Baron's line is, "So tell me more about this Houdini guy."
That's right.
And someone's already sprayed on the wall of the dungeon, "Long live Flash," or "Flash
Yeah.
forever," or something like that.
Yeah.
So yes, they're
And
being rescued.
Aura comes in,
Yes.
Princess Aura, and she's previously been chatting with Dale, and they had a bit of a pillow fight.
That's right.
And then they turned out that they were friends as well, and so they teamed
This is
up.
after she'd been.
Oh yeah, we totally skipped that.
She'd
that
been.
She'd been whipped.
Clytus
Yeah.
had administered the boar worms.
Oh, and the boar worms, all right. You got the whips and the boar worms. I mean,
Yeah.
We never really know what the boar worms do, but they don't sound good. If you're in a situation where you're being interrogated and someone asks to bring in the boar worms, you know
you're in trouble.
you're in trouble. So yes, and this was all under the approval of father of Ming.
That's
as
right.
Well.
Yes. So she comes in. It's another princess with a laser gun.
Yep.
Nothing I like more than a princess with a laser gun.
Yep.
And she rescues them.
Yep.
Now things start moving pretty fast.
Very
and-
quick. They got to shut down. Well, the warship Ajax goes through the cloud and a battle ensues.
Right.
Right.
And eventually the Hawkmen land all over the thing, and
Yep.
the guys like on a pirate ship are shooting out the windows, the gold robots of the bad guys.
They take the ship.
Ming bots.
Yep, and they take the ship.
They take the ship over, but it's kind of a bit fucked up. It's pretty heavily damaged.
So they're going to fly it in,
They're
and
gonna-
then they're going to jump ship at the last minute. They're going to use the ship to blast the shield, to punch their way through the shield, and then they fly through after. But mid heroic flight, Flash says, "Get off! I'm going to have to fly it in. You know I've got to fly it in."
Because the automatic pilot's
It's
broken.
broken, I
And,
gotta-
something, yeah. So he's going to have to do a suicide fly.
So it's heading in, and Doc and Baron decide that the best hope that Flash has is if we can shut the shield down. So they go then to try to shut the shield down.
By taking off
the
somebody's
laser
glasses.
shield.
Yeah, to take off the...
Take off the glasses.
Yeah.
That,
The internet glasses on the the virtual reality people who are running the internet, and then of course when it's a bit like in Blake 7. If you like smash a monitor, the internet blows up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you pull the goggles off these guys,
There's the same scene in The Last Starfighter, right at the end there, when there were all these guys at monitors with these goggle things, and when the power... he flies underneath and takes out this thing on the bottom of the ship, and once that takes out, then they all die and smokes, and their glasses explode, and smoke comes out. That's all you got to do.
all right. So Gordon's going in on his suicide run.
flying very slowly.
Yeah.
That was the slowest attack run. That was.
It's the music had to fit, right? So they had to fit the action to the music, and they had way more bars that you know.
There's a certain level of disbelief that I can suspend when stormtroopers don't hit anyone.
Yeah.
But here the guys are blasting their laser beams at right angles to the ship.
Yeah.
Ship is coming.
They're building up tension, man.
It's amazing.
It was a
That's right.
laser shield.
And
that was
meanwhile,
going
the
everywhere.
ceremony's going on as well, and
That's
Yes,
right.
The wedding.
to stop the
Coolest
panic,
wedding march ever.
the
Yes,
agent
Guitars.
Carla, is it that's her name?
General Carla.
General
I think
Carla.
it is.
Announces that to celebrate the
Yes. She doesn't want to disturb
the wedding, we
yeah.
are
turning on all
turning
of the
on
laser,
the flashy
laser
light
beams.
stuff.
Yes, it's going to be a light show.
So don't panic.
And so, yes, the wedding vows are again.
The wedding vows are classic.
They're awesome.
Yes.
Fantastic. Yeah, of course.
Do you take Dale Arden to have and hold at least as long as you grow
Yes.
tired?
Until you
grow
Until
weary
you
of her.
grow tired.
And then he says, and promise not to disintegrate her. And he looks at her and says, what? And he says, unless you need to or get tired of her or something.
It's riffing. Because apparently the ceremony means something. Like the all-powerful Ming who can just freeze you and
Well, like I
with
said,
his ring.
he's
and
not
then-
an adulterer. I mean, hey, it's some
Got to
moral.
draw the
makes the
line
rules.
somewhere.
He plays by them.
And so Flash is on his way in and
Yes.
he's heading straight for the ceremony.
That's right. And it gets back and forth and flash and gets closer and there, and people see it, and the laser shield goes down, and Flash fires his guns to break the window, and then Ming turns to run at the last possible second after 15 minutes of this ship slowly flying towards us.
Yeah.
And he gets stabbed by a rocket.
The rocket just happens to have a really long, pointy stick thing on the front of it, and it finds Ming.
Oh, and that's badass.
It is badass.
It is badass.
It is almost as badass as getting hit by a Death Star laser between the eyes.
Absolutely. Krennic. The scene where he slides off the spiky stick and leaves the green blood on the stick is
that's icky.
Is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's very memorable and very icky.
And he tries desperately in the throes of death to stop Flash, who picks up a sword and wants to end him.
There's a confrontation, right? He says, "Ming, you're finished," and he's like,
tries to rush at him with the sword, and he points the ring at him.
Yeah,
but the ring is
his power is fading. Yeah,
he's dying.
But what actually happens at the end of the demise of Ming?
Well, he disappears, and
how does he disappear?
I think he
turns into dust.
Yeah.
Why does he turn into dust?
I don't know.
Because evil.
Because of his own damn ring.
Really?
For some reason, his telefiddler ring points at his own head, and he and makes himself disappear.
And then he's nothing but his ring is
and just
left.
his ring, ding 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 ding, left on the thing.
Was that a teleport? Was that a ruse by Ming to teleport himself somewhere into safety?
I think you can't kill Ming because
he has to come back in the
sequel.
He's 1,000 years old at least because he's said so. So he must have a few tricks up his sleeve.
Yep.
And I think
all of the
big
actors were
sleeves.
signed on for multiple films.
That's right.
It was a multi-film deal.
And at the end has a question mark after it.
Well, it's the same with
you
Hawk.
see the hand.
Hawk the Slayer ended the same way, didn't it?
Oh yeah. Real cliffhanger. You see a hand come in and pick the ring up right at the very end.
That's right, at the very end.
Yep. With velvet black gloves.
So we're at the end. How did it wrap up?
There's a double wrap up. The first one is the director couldn't work out how to end the scene.
Yes.
So Flash, the actor Sam
Jones, whatever his name is,
jumped up in the air and did a victorious leap. And then freeze framed on that sort of thing. And then that couldn't be the end because that's the end, but we needed the conclusion.
That's right.
And the conclusion was the scene on the stairs where the Baron was going to take over the kingdom.
Yes.
And rule
marry
with
the princess.
The princess.
Yes, Princess Aurora.
And Flash was offered great rewards and riches, and he said no. Or I think it's her that has the line, said, no, I'm a New York City girl. This is a little boring around here for me. So they had decided to go back to Earth.
So, Earth was on a cataclysmic death spiral because the moon was raking.
The moon was, yes.
What
of course.
stopped that?
Ming dead.
Ming dead. Everything back
What,
to
it was
normal.
connected to Ming. It's a bit like the internet. When you punch the screen, the internet stops, or when you disappear Ming.
It was all coming from the Ring of Power.
It was all
reset. Big reset button. Automatic.
Game over. Beep, 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 beep.
Yeah. And that's it.
That's it. Game over.
Yeah. Bring up the Queen music, roll credits.
Yep.
Because when the hero saves the world, it's all going to be back to normal. There's no new state.
That's true.
Affairs. It's back to normal.
So yeah, a bit like the Simpsons. It always ends up back where you started. Nothing ever changes.
Do you ever read the Tick comic books?
Yes.
Yes.
I saw the old series.
And I read the books, but I didn't start at the start. I read some in between. And the moon in the Tick comic books always has CHA written on it. I never got why it says Cha on the moon. But I love that kind of continuity. There's an old story where Chairface Chippendale wants to write his name on the moon, gets interrupted, and only gets as far as Cha. And then for the rest of the entire series, it's just Cha on the moon.
Cool.
And I remember that as well. I thought that was just genius. I always used to love that. Used to giggle at that. All right, so that's it. That's Flash Gordon.
Yep.
Where to next?
We might as well mention what we're going to have a look at next in our next.
Well, what's our impressions of it?
Well, for me, it's a rental. Out of our sliding scale of rent or buy or set fire to, I don't think it's worthy of being set fire to because there's some really cool performances in it. There is not a lot of films like this.
No.
There's just not a lot of films like this. It's a real celebration of the early. I mean, the outfits are identical to what Ming was getting around in. I mean, that's what he looked like.
Yeah.
In this film.
Yeah.
They just introduced colour to it, and so it was true to the original. It wasn't a reboot like we see quite often, so for me, it's something to watch, but I probably wouldn't own it. So that's where I sit with it. What about you?
Yeah,
Tom?
same here.
I own the VHS tapes over there.
Yeah.
No, it's an own it for me. It's a buy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, IMDb's got it at 6.8, and I'm like, no. It's much better than that.
You're talking about Flash Gordon the franchise or this particular film?
Even this particular film. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go and look at the IMDb, a lot of it seems to be people seem to be much more, I don't know, much more impressed with it than the 6.8 that they gave it on that final thing there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm a definite buy it.
So, I mean, that's a fairly positive reaction to it. We don't always have that sort of reaction to sci-fi of that era. Early 80s sci-fi. We really went through some problems.
What do we think?
I think they were all reeling from the Star Wars phenomenon, and everyone was either trying to get on board and copy it or trying to do something so outrageously different that they couldn't be accused of copying
And that's
it.
definitely what they're going for here.
That's what I think
It's
too.
outrageous, right?
And it's Euro. Like, this is so Euro, it's not funny. Like, it's not American. It's very, like you said, it's just stylistically different to what the Americans were doing.
And these spaceships, man.
Yeah.
I want to see a modern movie with these kind of Art Deco kind of designs. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, those type of things. They're
It's getting
starting
close.
to get close to
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Terrible visual effects in this, like the matte lines, the green
Yeah,
screening,
yeah.
the lighting, the superimposition over any sort of background was terrible.
Yeah.
The physical stuff was pretty good. The props and the set pieces and things like that wasn't too bad.
With old filmmaking, you spend all the money, and when the money runs out,
Yeah.
that's where and post production suffers from that.
Yeah.
because all the props they're built at the start, all the sets.
Did you ever used to watch the Goodies?
Yeah, all the time.
The best Goodies shows were the last of the series.
Okay.
When they'd run out of money for special effects, and it was just the three Goodies
Yeah.
in a set in one room.
In one room, yeah.
Going crazy, annoying each other
Yeah.
for half an hour. Yeah. Good writing is what makes a difference. So just wrap up the complexity of the narrative. Where does it fall on the complex, the complexometer?
It's 60% complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more complex than not complex.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it's definitely towards the complex.
It's not on the simple end.
I got
range.
Forbidden Planet down at the sort of close to the minimum in complexity. The fairly straight. We're just going to tell you a story. There's a monster.
Yep.
We're going to find the monster. We'll kill the monster.
Absolutely.
You know. So anyway, it's getting up there. If they stuck in the Shark Men, we'd be like, fucking hell, there's a bit too much going on here.
There was a lot of exposition in it.
And that's where you give up. If there's too much, like in Buckaroo Banzai, if there's too complicated, you stop caring either as well.
Yeah.
You don't want to try and figure it out even.
Yeah.
Battle Beyond the Stars.
I'm convinced that Buckaroo Banzai is an example of complexity being used as comedy.
Yeah.
Like they were literally throwing a lot of that shit in there to get more laughs. It wasn't required. It didn't.
I don't know if that's a deliberate, calculated move, or a serendipitous accident of people being a bit
drug fueled.
Yes, exactly.
I wanted to mention something that I saw the other day that I'm pretty excited about. The all-time worst film in history that they rate. The guy with the long black hair.
He's
sort
not
of
Battlefield Earth or something.
No. He got a. I'll have to dig it out for you. He got a crew together. He got money together, and he got a crew together and tried to shoot this film. And he was the world's worst actor. It's rated as the all-time worst film ever made, and it's now comedic because it's so really really bad. They're making I saw a trailer the other day. They're making a movie of that film being made.
Oh yeah.
And it looks hilarious. I'm going to show you this through the week. I'll show you through the week, and I'll have something for the next show. Now, the next show we're going to have a look at.
Yes.
Zardoz, which I'd never heard of before until you guys. Who was it that initially brought it up?
I don't know. Somebody
Could have been Rick.
Yeah.
And it's quite literally Sean Connery running around for the entirety of a film in a red loincloth.
And a 6-shooter.
And a 6-shooter, and in some instances, thigh-high hooker boots. It's sort of fantasy, sort of sci-fi, weirdness, late 70s, I'd say, early 80s. We're going to have a look at that next time.
I'm going to go in cold. I'm not going to look at any reviews. I'm not going to look at anything. I'm going to watch it.
I've already
pure.
I've looked at the trailer.
Oh, right. I'm not going to watch anything.
Don't look at the trailer.
So you both have not seen that?
No,
yet?
I didn't even know it. Had you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times.
I didn't even know it existed.
Rick's on board very early on. He said, make sure that I don't miss out on the Zardoz show. So that's Flash Gordon.
Cool.
That's another show. As always, a pleasure to have you on board, Tom. Anything exciting coming up in the near future for you?
Zardoz.
How was your astrological meeting? Is there anything exciting happening in the skies that we should know about?
They have a nice target for the New Horizons space probe, which was interesting. They so that flew past Pluto 2 years ago, and they have lots of petrol left. They wanted to fly it to another trans-Neptunian object, and they put the big call out there to all the citizen scientists, find us this thing. You know, have all these photos of the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. Check through the photos, see if you can find us something too. Anyway, they found some object that they want to fly the space probe to. And then they said, well, we need to get the accurate course. So we have to exactly find its position. They calculated when it would occult a star. And last Monday, the occultation happened. So this is where this trans-Neptunian object blinks over a star. Essentially, it casts a shadow onto the Earth. Now, if you can time that, if you can stand on the Earth and look at the star, and then you can see when it blinks away, and when it blinks back again, you can time it. You know exactly the diameter. You can very accurately determine the position of that object.
Wow.
So you needed people down in Patagonia, South America, to actually observe this occultation. And NASA bought, I think, 60 telescopes, and then invited several hundred amateur astronomers, saying, "Hey, take our telescopes, go to South America, and observe the thing, do the timing." And they blocked down a road, a bit of a highway. They blocked off, so there was no car headlights, and they even parked big trucks on the road to give windshield to the telescope observers, so they could get the best viewing conditions down there. Where it's very dry, so that was very interesting.
So
that
no
just happened
clouds?
last year. No, it worked out pretty well, and
You should be
they.
spewing if there was cloudy day. There's a lot of expense went into that.
Oh, there's some horrible stories about transit of Venus with people having a really hard time, because transit of Venus is one of those other things that astronomers have always tried to get really to observe, because it lets you actually calculate the distance between the Earth and the Sun, and they wanted to know, how far are we away. And there's one, and of course like any astronomical thing, you need to have good weather, and the weather is fickle, mistress. So, and you have to be, in order to observe the transit, they sent us people all over the world. Captain Cook, Australia was he was meant to go to Tahiti and observe the transit, and then afterwards was told to discover Australia, please. And so he was sent down there. Other people were sent all over the planet. People went to Siberia and got killed by the Mongols up there. Never got to where they were supposed to be. Yeah. And the saddest story is this guy who went to India, and he was on the boat to India, went to the harbor, and then he wasn't allowed to disembark because a war had broken out between England and whatever. And so he had to be on the boat when the transit happened, and the boat moves, so he couldn't see it. And transits always happen in 8-year intervals. So when the first one happens, the next one happens 8 years later. And then there's a 100-year pause. But then there's always one, and then the next one is 8 years afterwards.
Okay.
So he was already in India, and this is the, 1700s, so there's no point going back to England if 8 years later you're going to be back here.
Yeah.
So he said, well, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay in India. He built an observatory on land. He had everything in place. 8 years later... Cloudy.
There's a movie. That's a movie right there. Crazy. And Dan, what about you, mate? Anything exciting coming up?
Nothing as exciting as all of that.
Yeah.
No, Zardoz is the next exciting thing for me in my life.
Very good. That's it for another show. Until next time, it's bye for me.
See ya.
Auf Wiedersehen.